British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm your host, Braden Coombs, and here are your 3 p.m. sports and news headlines. We start off with local news. BC Premier David Eby is in Ottawa today, meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney and other federal government officials. Eby is making the visit to push for more investment and major project fundings in BC. Eby also met with new Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon to express his discontent with the treatment of BC ferry users compared to those across the country. He is expected to return from Ottawa later today. The BC General Employees Union announced today that more than 8,500 union members are now taking job action. With the increase in job action, 2 more picket sites have been made. The 2 new sites are up at Gaming Policy and Enforcement Branch in Burnaby and at the Ministry of Citizen Services office in Victoria. Union members are now entering their 3rd week of job action. They want their wages to keep pace with inflation and the rising cost of living. Municipal political candidates normally start announcing their campaigns 6 months before their election day. That has now been increased to over a year, with Surrey councillor Linda Annis' announcement for running for mayor in 2026. Our reporter Graciela Cruz Flores with the story.
Surrey is one of the fastest growing cities in BC, projected to become the province's most populous city. With the growing population, demands for housing have increased. Many residents have complained that the city has not kept up with its growth pace, lacking traffic enforcement and road maintenance, and high rates of poverty have grown in parts of Surrey, including the city center in Whalley. With the announcement of Councillor Linda Annis running for mayor in 2026, these concerns will be big topics for Annis and current mayor Brenda Locke. During her announcement, Annis released a list of her priorities for the city and criticized Locke for focusing too much on police transitions. Graciela Cruz Flores, BCIT News.
An Abbotsford police officer has been cleared of a fatal shooting from November 2023. BC's independent police watchdog has cleared the officer of wrongdoing in the shooting of a man who took a nurse hostage with a pair of scissors. In a report, the investigative services said it was unfortunate that the officer did not have access to the effective non-lethal tools, but the shooting was justified considering the circumstances. The incident happened on November 30th, 2023, when the man was being released from the hospital after being admitted for drug psychosis. Mission RCMP are asking for help from the public in finding a man who stole a donation box from a local monastery. Police say the incident took place on September 2nd at the Little Flower Monastery. The suspect entered the building, walked around for a while, then walked out with the box of cash. This is the 2nd time this month that the monastery's donation box has been stolen. A worn IndyCar racer helmet has been recovered after it was stolen from BC Sports Hall of Fame. The helmet that belonged to racer Greg Moore was stolen from the museum earlier this month. Vancouver police say investigators used security footage to identify the suspect. The thief was then tracked down to a residential building on the downtown east side. The suspect has been arrested and will appear in court on November 19th. With high temperatures continuing to hit many areas of BC, many communities are seeing record high temperatures. Environment Canada says 10 different daily records occurred on September 17th. The Okanagan was impacted the most, with communities like Kelowna, Kamloops, and Vernon all breaking their previous records. Kamloops had a high of 34 degrees, shattering the record of 32 degrees set in 1937. Truth and Reconciliation is coming up next week, and as newcomers make their way to Canada, accessible resources are being provided to educate them about Indigenous matters. Selena Teixeira has more on the story.
In the week before Truth and Reconciliation Day, there have been various events giving the community education about the Indigenous considerations in Canada. With an introduction to Indigenous land acknowledgements, common terminology, and changes like UNDRIP, the Vancouver Public Library hosts an event relaying these materials. Amara Charters, who works in the Programming and Learning Department, explains its impact.
We think it is really important for the library to be a resource for folks around truth and reconciliation, Indigenous considerations, because people are coming to us and we need to be prepared to answer their questions and provide them information in an accessible format.
Libraries provide important information, welcoming newcomers to learn more about the Indigenous considerations in Canada. Selena Teixeira, BCIT News.
Judge Kareem Zahir Javraj says sharing care home clients' violent history should be mandatory by legislation. This comes after a fatal inquiry into a woman's stabbing death at the hands of a teenager who had a history of violent incidents. Javraj says the full extent of Brandon Newman's violent history was not shared between agencies when he was transferred to the assisted living facility. The suspect, Newman, pleaded guilty in 2021 to second-degree murder for fatally stabbing Deborah Onwu 19 times. This resulted in a lifetime sentence for Newman with no chance of parole for 14 years. The Alberta government has chosen not to renew its ban on the practice of carding by police officers. Carding refers to police officers stopping the public without reason and asking for identification. The provincial regulation that enforced the ban was due for renewal this past summer, but the province decided not to renew it. Alberta had banned the practice back in 2021 and set new rules for other situations where officers ask the public for identification. Now, over to national news. A shooting took place in Pennsylvania yesterday, killing 3 police officers. A prosecutor says a suspected stalker was armed with a rifle and hid at his ex-girlfriend's home. When police arrived on scene to arrest the man, he ambushed them and shooting and killing 3 of the officers that responded. York County District Attorney Tim Barker says the officers opened the unlocked door and were immediately fired upon. 3 of the officers at the door were killed, while the other one is seriously injured. Jimmy Kimmel's television future is in question after CBC suspended his late-night show following the host's comments about Charlie Kirk's killing. The comments prompted dozens of stations to say they wouldn't air the show, a move that was cheered on by a top federal regulator. The veteran late-night show comic made several remarks on Monday and Tuesday about the reaction to the conservative activist's assassination, which included saying many in MAGA land were working to capitalize on Kirk's killing. Now, over to sports. Canucks hockey is finally back. The Vancouver Canucks had their first day of training camp today. The Canucks camp is in Penticton again this year at the South Okanagan Events Center. Today, the team was on the ice from 9:30 a.m. until 12:30, splitting into 2 separate groups. Canucks Army reporter David Quadrelli says Elias Pettersson is centering a line with Brock Besser and Jake DeBrusk. He also says that new acquisition Evander Kane is on a line centered by Philip Hedl. The Canucks preseason will begin on the 21st as well, when they take on the Seattle Kraken. The Canucks' Eastern Canadian foe, the Toronto Maple Leafs, started out their training camp today as well. Former Canucks power forward Dakota Joshua was seen out on the ice. Leafs head coach Craig Berube made himself available to media following the practice. Berube says he likes the physicality his team has brought so far.
It's a tough day. It's a lot of battling. It's intense, and players, they could go out and make it as intense as they want, but I thought it was really intense.
One centerman the Canucks were linked to this offseason remains unsigned with his current team. Anaheim Ducks forward Mason McTavish is sitting out of Ducks training camp and will be training with the Ottawa 67s of the OHL in the meantime. The 22-year-old, who is a restricted free agent, is still without contract. McTavish will not be able to train with Anaheim until he signs with the team. Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman reports the 2 sides remain at a stalemate in contract negotiations. Michael McLeod, one of the 5 World Junior Hockey players acquitted for sexual assault, has unofficially signed with the Carolina Hurricanes. The contract is unofficial due to the rules of him not being able to sign a contract with an NHL team officially until October 15th. McLeod has not played in the NHL since the 2023-2024 season, where he put up 19 points in 45 games played. With postseason baseball now on the horizon, Canadian baseball fans had their eyes on a few games today. The Toronto Blue Jays wrapped up their 4-game series against the Tampa Bay Rays this afternoon. The Jays, though, were shut out and fell short to the Tampa Bay Rays, losing by a score of 4-0. The Blue Jays starting pitcher Chris Bassett struggled in his outing and was pulled in the 5th inning. Bassett allowed 8 hits and 3 earned runs against while striking out 3. The Blue Jays offense only mustered 4 hits in the game. And with the loss, the Blue Jays split the series 2 games apiece. The Boston Red Sox finished up their series against the Athletics at the same time, and thankfully for the Jays, the Red Sox lost to the Athletics by a score of 5-3, losing the 3-game series. With the loss from both teams, playoff odds remained untouched as the Red Sox remained 6 games back of the Blue Jays. The New York Yankees start their next series against the Baltimore Orioles just over an hour from now. The Seattle Mariners were looking to retake their division lead in their afternoon game today, and they did exactly that, defeating the Kansas City Royals by a score of 2-0. Starting pitcher Luis Castillo had a great game, pitching 6 innings with only 3 hits and no earned runs against. With the win, the M's are now tied with the Houston Astros for top spot in the American League West. Both the Astros and the Mariners return to action tomorrow. The BC Lions are facing off against the Calgary Stampeders tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. in Calgary. Former Lions quarterback and now Stampeders quarterback Vernon Adams Jr. will be going against his former team for the first time. The QB says he is more focused on pushing for top spot in the division rather than proving the Lions wrong.
Not that it's the Lions, but it's just it's an important conference game to keep getting to where we want to go. You know what I'm saying? Chasing first place. You know, we have an opportunity to come out here and get a little bit closer to Sask.
This will be the first time the two teams play one another this season. Thursday Night Football is on tonight as well as the Buffalo Bills face off against the Miami Dolphins. The game is in Buffalo and it is set to start at 5:15 p.m. Now, over to weather. It's still hot out there as the sun continues to shine with a little bit of cloud. There's a high of 19 degrees today and a low of 13 overnight. For tomorrow, the sun will stay out with a high of 23 and a low of 14. Thank you for listening to BCIT's The Crow. I'm your host, Braden Coombs, and those were your 3 p.m. Sports and News headlines.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
When I tell people that I studied journalism, they immediately say, oh, you want to be a reporter. But I think, in my case personally, I really want to go into magazines, PR, social media. And I think here at school we learn a lot of skills that allow you to go into that world because you learn how to write for social media, social content, for websites,